Hi, everyone. This is Samarah Grace Daniels saying happy Monday. It's the 18th of January of 2021. It's also the day that we celebrate Martin Luther King, a couple days away from the inauguration. And our country here in the US is certainly poised for, concern. So as I'm going to do every Monday, I'm going to just send forth my love and blessings. Like so many of us, I don't understand everything that's happening, but I'm doing my best to stay peaceful and to offer that back out to you along with any words of wisdom that I can come up with. So the first thing I want to say is be at peace. This was a greeting often used in biblical times, and it's used by the Eskimos who want you to rub noses with them. It's used by those in Europe who kiss two cheeks. It's just a different way of being. And I know that if I just bring that peace into my heart, it helps me to breathe and to offer out something other than worry or concern or anxiety or judgment or all of those things. So my first offering to you is to be at peace. Now, a lot of what seems to be going on right now seems kind of unbelievable. And yet what I did in the last couple of days, I went back to look at Martin Luther King Jr.'s last few speeches. And most of us know his I Have a Dream speech. But I wanted to share with you a part of what he said in his last speech before he was assassinated the next day. And it's often called, I've been to the mountaintop. That's sort of the theme of the speech. But it's seldom that people share the sort of the whole speech, and I just encourage you to do that. But I want to just share with you a little bit of his perspective as he was coming into this in the 1960s. So these are Martin Luther King's words. As you know, if I were standing at the beginning of time with the possibility of general and panoramic view of the whole human history up to now, and the Almighty said to me, Martin Luther King, which age would you like to live in? I would take my mental flight by Egypt through, or rather across the Red Sea, through the wilderness and on toward the promised land. And in spite of its magnificence, I wouldn't stop there. I would move on by Greece and take my mind to Mount Olympus. And I would see Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, Euripides, and Aristophanes assembled around the Parthenon as they discussed the great and eternal issues of reality. But I wouldn't stop there. I would go on even to the great heyday of the Roman Empire, and I would see developments around there through various emperors and leaders. But I wouldn't stop there. I would even come up to the day of the Renaissance and get a quick picture of all that the Renaissance did for the cultural and aesthetic life of man. But I wouldn't stop there. I would even go by the way that the man for whom I'm named had his habitat. That would have been Martin Luther. And I would watch Martin Luther as he tacked his 95 theses on the door of the church in Wittenberg. But I wouldn't stop there. I would come up even to 1863 and watch a vacillating president by the name of Abraham Lincoln finally come to the conclusion that he had to sign the Emancipation Proclamation. But I wouldn't stop there. I would even come up to the early 30s and see a man grappling with the problems of the bankruptcy of his nation and come up with an eloquent cry that we have nothing to fear but fear itself. But I wouldn't stop there. Strangely enough, I would turn to the Almighty and say, if you allow me to live just a few years in the second half of the 20th century, I will be happy. Now that's a strange statement to make because the world is all messed up. The nation is sick. Trouble is in the land, confusion all around. But I know somehow that only when it is dark enough can you see the stars. And I see God working in this period of the 20th century in a way that men, in some strange way, are responding. Something is happening in our world. The masses of people are rising up, and wherever they are assembled today, whether they are in Johannesburg, South Africa, Nairobi, Kenya, Accra, Ghana, New York City, Atlanta, Georgia, Jackson, Mississippi, or Memphis. The cry is always the same. We want to be free. And another reason that I'm happy to live in this period is that we have been forced to a point where we're going to have to grapple with the problems that men have been trying to grapple with through history. But the demands did not force them to do it. Survival demands that we grapple now with them. For years now, men have been talking about war and peace, but now no longer can they just talk about it. It is no longer a choice between violence and nonviolence in this world. It's nonviolence or non-existence. And he goes on from there to talk about how the Almighty took him up to see the promised land, and that he might not get there with his people, but that we as a people, he promised them, we're going to get there. And so as I look out on the demonstrations and I look out on this world, I again see this inflection point where there's a perception that someone's taking something from you. And in some cases, that's absolutely true, because we're a society that has been built on aggression and suppression. And now, how do we move into peace and equality and a place at the table for everyone? And I wish I had a simple answer. And I know that we have a new president coming in, and boy, he and his staff sure have their hands full. So what can we do? What can we do as individuals in this time? And for me, step one, be at peace. Because what I believe becomes the world that I create, and what I believe becomes the way that I interact with other people. And so I'm choosing to believe that this can be not only a reckoning, but another renaissance, a renaissance into a time of peace and equality and goodwill and solutions for all of the very, very grave problems that we have in the world. But I do believe it begins within. And so I'd like to share with you a poem that I wrote, gosh, almost 20 years ago, but kind of like Martin Luther King's words, for me, it still holds true. I called it Common Ground, many paths, one light. This is a time of chaos. This is a time for healing. This is a time of choice. This is a time to care. This is a time to stand and say, yes. This is a time to stand and say no. This is a time of challenge, and this is a time for peace. We join together, old and young, frail and strong, hearts and hands, to heal the wounds we have wrought for centuries. There is blood in our water, acid in our land, death in our skies. We join together to take up the sword of truth and the shield of light, to dissolve all boundaries, deceit, and judgment, to stand united once again, I and thou, in the garden of brotherhood, sisterhood, what Martin Luther King saw as the promised land. So let us stand united once again in that garden, and the human heart is common ground. So that's kind of my offering to you all today, that what we believe is what we create. And so let's see if we can believe in peace, see if we can believe in equality, and see if we can work toward a seat at the table for everyone. And to do that in a nonviolent way. We all have the right to protest. We all have the right to write to our congressmen, senators, mayors, etc. But the way of violence is not the way to create the garden, to create peace, and to have a country we're all proud of. So my wish for you and for all of us is, may peace be with you. May you breathe it in. May you breathe it out. May you be safe. May you feel loved. And may you know that your voice matters, but raise it in song and in truth because we don't really have enemies when we work together toward common ground. I send you all my greatest love and my wish for this day, that you have peace in your heart, peace in your mind, and that you act in that way with peace in the world. So be it, and so it is. Bye for now. Samarah Grace Daniels signing off.